a new flavor for your ear. Epic Spotlight. Putting the spotlight on positive goings on the real people that have chosen a real path. The who's, the whys, and the hows.
We got to take care of some housekeeping notes. Today's episode is sponsored by Epic Mortgage. Whether you're buying, refinancing, or investing, call Epic today. That's 708-905-5300. That's 708-905-5300. It's your dreams, your goals. Let's plan together. All right. So we got so we got that out of the way. We got our guest, Ryan Weiss.
That's right.
All right, Ryan Weiss. So here, let me read this. Ryan Weiss, with over 20 years of experience, is a seasoned leader, passionate about driving positive change. His diverse background includes founding and leading businesses from a young age, managing global teams across 20 plus countries, and serving as a global executive for a $20 billion chemical company. In 2016, he founded EPS, a thriving company offering proprietary software solutions and coaching services across various industries. With degrees in chemistry and finance, Ryan has developed the optics system, empowering companies to align for accelerated performance. Currently working on his second book, Ryan continues to inspire with his clarity-driven approach to business challenges. Welcome, Ryan.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, Dante.
No, likewise. Love to have you. Business is so important. Obviously, so many times as a business owner myself, we get stuck into sales and marketing, but there's a little bit more than just that. And so I wanted to kind of ask you those types of questions as far as what inspired you really to kind of want to tweak, streamline processes for companies.
Yeah. So I've always been I will say I've always been sort of a technical process minded person. So degrees in chemistry and finance. It's like, how can we fix the world's problems through technical solutions and things like that? What I learned along the way very early in my career was that people need to be engaged in processes, and processes are only impactful if people use them, right? And so when you start thinking about people and process, that's really a habit cycle. If people are following a process, or if you're creating processes that help people to do something, it becomes sort of a habit cycle. And that's what I became really passionate about in my corporate journey. And then when I left the corporate world, I started looking at how can I impact the world with this? Because, well, if you think about process on its own, it's tough to change things because you've got to get people engaged in it. But it's really that intersection of people and process that I get so passionate and so worked up about.
So obviously, a lot of business owners listen to the show. They say, okay, that sounds great. How do I know I have an issue?
So issues, great question. So issues can show up a lot of different ways. Sometimes, let me give you the two corollaries here. So people without process get frustrated. So if you've got employees that are getting frustrated, if you've got customers who are getting frustrated, even if you have vendors maybe who are getting frustrated working with your company sometimes, those can often be symptoms of a process alignment issue. The corollary to that is that process without people is wasted. So if you've created process and process and process, but it's not being followed, and you see that people aren't really following it, you've got lots of documentation, you're like, we've created lots of processes, but nobody's following it. Those two things, frustrated people or processes you've created that just aren't being followed, and sometimes you might be getting frustrated because you're looking at your team and you're like, we have a process for that. Why didn't people follow it? That's really the intersection when you've got people who aren't following processes, or they don't even have processes to follow. Those often result in lost profits, lost waste that's going on in your system or in your business, rework or customer complaints or employee turnover. Like any one of these things, when you kind of bring it back, it has something to do with your people and process.
Got it. And obviously with your clients and with some businesses that you deal with, are those the similar kind of common challenges that you see in and out from a day to day?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I see it in construction companies. I see it in manufacturing companies and distribution companies. When there's misaligned expectations, or when there's like people don't quite know what to do or where their job starts and ends, or they do a handoff, but then they get a request from somebody saying, hey, I didn't get all the information I need. Like all this back and forth stuff is just causing noise. I'm sure it happens in the mortgage market, right?
Sure.
You go say, hey, we need this information. It comes back, oh, we need this information too. And that information wasn't right. So having clearly aligned expectations between people who are communicating is really a process issue.
Yeah, it's obviously I take it to the mortgage industry, and I just know, our goal is to try to help a buyer get through the process of obtaining a home mortgage and just all the ins and outs that comes with that, from, the beginning of, collecting documents, going through the underwriting challenges, and then finally getting to a closing table. And, there always sometimes is such a disconnect because you have so many people involved. You probably have about, roughly 7 to 10 people every transaction. So I definitely understand about the process. That's why I was so interested.
And that's all those handoffs that are going on. So that's really the problem that our organization, that the Optic system is solving, is those handoffs between different people. So, a quick example, I had a client in manufacturing who said they had a billing problem but they didn't really have a billing problem. Their billing process was very, very clean and very streamlined. It's very simple. But when we looked at the handoffs that had to happen in order for them to bill a customer, they had to enter the order in their order entry system. And by the way, they had 4 different methods of doing that. Then they had to make a decision. Do we make something? Do we modify something? Or do we just pull out of stock? And then they had to make it, and then they had to ship it. And then that paperwork had to come back to the billing department. That's where all the mess was happening, right? The mess was not in their billing process. So sometimes these symptoms show up and we have to dig in and see. So in the 7 people in your mortgage process, you've got the lender, you've got the seller's broker, you've got the buyer's agent, you've got the person themselves who's trying to buy the house, you got the seller who's trying to sell it. You have all these people, and then and you try to streamline all those things, and then the day of the closing, I saw a meme the other day. It's like, the day of the closing, the buyer shows up in a brand new car that they just financed, right?
Right.
and all of a sudden the whole thing kind of blows up, right?
Blows up.
It's like, oh man, you can't take out this much mortgage now. So all those expectations between the seller, their agent, the buyer, their agent, the mortgage broker, the bank, the attorneys who might get involved, all these people, right? Yep. And when you've got all this complexity going on, being able to really look at the core work stream and say, what are the expectations at each of these steps, so that when we get to closing, everything's clean. That's just an example of the type of assessment we do and help people with.
That's awesome. And now, off the top of my head, I imagine you're not only helping people save time, but you're also helping people save money too. I mean, obviously, I'm just imagining with some of the stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, there's no doubt. When you look at the amount of money that gets lost and gets wasted, working with a manufacturing company recently and looking at the changeover times. So they stop making one part and they have to start producing the next part. Well, a piece of equipment, and there are companies that take 7 or 8 hours to do a process. And we did some assessment, and we found their goal is to do it in 15 minutes. So if you imagine for a moment a company taking 7 hours of lost production, and at maybe $300 per hour for a piece of equipment, so that's $2,100. And their goal is, they're like, when we assessed it, they're like, we could do this in 15 minutes. Just think about the amount of money that gets lost in that, right? Sure. An 8-hour process turning into 15 minutes. There's a lot of money on the table there.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, obviously, you're already a book writer, and this is your second book. Is it called Optics? Is that?
Yes, sir. This next book is going to be called Optics. So that's what our software platform is called. The podcast I've got, Optics in Action, and the book is going to be called Optics.
Can you talk about it a little bit? Just, I don't want to give too much away, but just talk about what was the reason for the second book, and what was the reason of just writing it?
Yeah. So the word optics, I sort of stumbled on this when I was out walking one day when we were out camping. And I was out walking, and I stumbled on this word and started thinking about the word optics. And the word optics has two definitions in the dictionary. One of them is the study of light. So it's very technical. It's very like you think about lenses and focus and things like that. The second meaning of the word optics is the perceptions of people. So when we think about streamlining a process or making a process change, we not only have to come up with a good technical process that people can use, but we also need to motivate the people who do the process, who do the work, to change, to perceive it in a new way and to do things in a new way. The only way you create new habits that make a better outcome is by having a better process that's followed by people that people actually engage with. So the book Optics is about this 5-step process for taking something that may be all messed up and broken and walking it through these 5 steps to get the clarity and focus that you need and to engage the right people along the way so that you create great processes that work.
That's awesome. Take me into a scenario with a client of yours. Take me in there from day one. I notice there's a problem, right? I notice the flow is not going the way it needs to be. Take me through like how do you engage with the people? Because like you said, sometimes it's hard to get people to change.
That's right. So the 5-step process that we take people through, it starts with the first step is the purpose, scope, and gaps. So prior to us trying to do anything around a process, I want to know, why is this process important? What is the scope of it? Where does it start and where does it end? And what are the gaps that are existing today? And this is the beginning of change management. It's getting the team, getting the folks who are involved in it to start feeling uncomfortable with where they're at today. Because if we're comfortable, right? If I'm really comfortable sitting in my chair and I'm like, I don't want to get up and go exercise. I don't want to get up and go do something. But if I start feeling some discomfort, some concern, some frustration, and I can articulate that frustration of where I'm at, then I'm going to be far more motivated, far more likely to do something different. So it starts with that first step, which is that purpose, the scope, and the gaps. What are the problems I'm experiencing today? How do I articulate those? Then we go through the other 4 steps, which is we document the process at a high level and start thinking about the process. Then we jump into quality, value, and speed. So we think about the process. What do I need? What are my expectations of this process in terms of quality? What's the quality outcome look like? What's the value or cost that I want to improve here? And what's the speed or timeliness in which this needs to get done? And then we move into something we call ARM, accountability and responsibility matrix. This is really important because even if you create this amazing process and you're like, oh, this is who should do what, or this is what should be done and how it should be done. If you don't get it to that next step of who's accountable for making sure it gets done and who's responsible for doing something and what are they supposed to do, if we don't define that, it becomes really difficult to get anybody to do something. So taking folks through that purpose, scope, and gaps, process documentation, quality, value, and speed expectations, accountability, responsibility matrix, and then an action plan to move forward and start solving it. It starts with that discomfort. It starts with making sure that people are able to articulate the discomfort they feel today so that they can move to a better place.
That's great. That's really cool. I'm just such a process guy. I'm more of we got to do A, then we got to do B, we got to do C. I just can't free flow it. And I think most companies, if they, structure brings results. I mean, at the end of the day. So, you've shared so many different experiences with different companies, but can you just share one that maybe, hits really hits home for you that, you're proud of what your team was able to accomplish?
Yeah. So I think probably in a very short snapshot, one of the things that the way we document process, I was actually at a diaper manufacturer in South China one time. This was a number of years ago, about 7-8 years ago. And through a translator, we used the optics process to just lay it out on the whiteboard of what we were doing. And the owner of this diaper manufacturer, at the end of it, through a translator, right? Like they were all speaking in Mandarin Chinese, and I'm sitting there in English. Through a translator, at the end of it, he said to me, he said, "You understand my business better than my team does." And that's when it started to really occur to me the power of this system. And we've done this over and over and over again now with hundreds and hundreds of times, where we're seeing the results that come out the back end when we solve those issues on the front end.
That's awesome. You provided some great information today, Ryan. I really appreciate you going on the show, and definitely want you to have an epic day.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me.
That have chosen a path. The who's, the whys, and the hows are being shared and given to you.